Twilight's Nightmare, Chapter 24, Part 2.
Starlight, hold it here, please.
Luna asked, trotting up to the now frozen image of the stallion, avoiding the volley of projectiles just moments from hitting him.
Sister informed me that he was dead.
Luna snarled as she circled him. Her eyes shifted to glowing draconic slits for just a few heartbeats.
Meet the face of your assassin.
Luna pointed her hoof at the stallion.
This cur is the one that gave you that spellbook. Wait, it's spellbook and an assassin?
Starlight thought. She was just confused, but thought better of asking any questions for now. Luna then looked into her shadow.
Take a good look.
A pair of eyes opened within the shadow. Trixie was now pressing against Starlight's side, taking comfort from her being there, and incidentally sheltering from Luna behind her. Luna continued talking to the creature in her shadow.
Now, inform the rest of our guard who their prey is.
The eyes vanished. Something about Luna's mane altered, but Starlight would be hard-pressed to say what.
Start from 2 minutes ago and let events play forward.
Twilight commanded in a tone that sounded very much like Luna. Starlight had no choice but to comply. Past Twilight stepped into the chamber, a sound barrier dripping from her like a shed coat. She flared her wings, displaying the razor edges of her wing blades. It was an intimidating display. Starlight could imagine the sensation of those hungry-looking blades parting her flesh. She simply shuddered at the thought. Past Twilight's eyes quickly swept the chamber, with the look of a professional soldier. This was Twilight the warrior princess, not Twilight the book-loving princess of friendship. Starlight considered how different her own encounter would have gone if she had met this version instead of the one that brought her into the light of friendship.
I'm not sure if I would have survived that encounter.
The hunger for violence that sparked in past Twilight's eyes terrified Starlight. A nightmare Twilight was not something any pony needed.
Without the elements, could she even be stopped?
Past Twilight calmly assessed the robed unicorns arranged in a semicircle around her, and seemed to find them wanting. Starlight got the impression that Twilight then thought she outnumbered them 1 to 9. The central figure advanced towards Twilight and spoke in a contempt-laced sneer. Blood magic, dear Twilight? Oh, Celestia would be so disappointed with you. She might even send you back to magical kindergarten. Starlight looked questionably at present Twilight, who spoke up.
Yes, I know many forbidden spells, and being a princess, I'm allowed to use them if the situation warrants it.
Starlight was unsure whether she should be impressed by Twilight's newfound practicality or annoyed at the hypocrisy. Past Twilight responded, her voice a menacing purr.
I'm the elements of magic, and all magic bends to my will. Do you truly think that one such as you can stand against me?
She leaned forward threateningly. Her horn lit as she changed her stance. It was clear that she was in charge here, and she had no doubt that she would prevail. I do! The stallion let out a cruel bark of laughter. You are nothing but the rarest of spell components to me, princess. Starlight could feel Trixie trembling beside her. She put a foreleg over her in a clumsy attempt at a hug. Clumsy or not, it proved effective. Twilight flicked her eyes to the exit.
And you are worth less than the dust on my hooves. I shall be leaving now.
A spell that Starlight had never seen before leapt from Twilight's horn, a lance of ebony fire. To see her smiling with glee when throwing around what was most definitely a lethal spell was a shock. Somehow the target was unharmed, the only effect was just some damage to his robe. A look of disbelief crossed past Twilight's face a moment before a different roped pony detonated, leaving a cloud of ash behind. That shocked expression faded, replaced with a thoughtful one and then a hungry grin. Twilight's horn lit with 3 layers of glows. The lead cultist's eyes flashed virulent green, coils of miasma rolling from them as he roared out. You shall not escape me! Twilight's spellcasting faltered, small arcs of power sparking from her horn, lashing dangerously about, scorching her coat. With a pained expression, Twilight managed to force the energy into forming a shield spell. Nearly.
No, not now,
she growled, her voice laced with rage. A swarm of surgical blades flashed into existence, then rushed towards Twilight's face, propelled by the Dark Stallion's magic. Moments later, blasts of force lanced out from the other cultist's horn, all converging with deadly intent. Twilight just managed to force the magic into the worst example of a shield Starlight had ever seen before. The attack started hitting, and her body crumpled to the floor and she started to burn from within. She curled up, shaking in pain, unable to act. After a few seconds of her not even doing anything to protect herself, even with attack after attack landing, the attack slowed, and then stopped, but the flames kept building. The robed cultist closed in a bit, the lead one seeming a bit puzzled, like he was thinking things went too well. He slowly started to approach the downed Twilight. Then suddenly, burning blood erupted from her neck as it began to circle in the air, spiraling down and forming into the burning runes that had detonated outside. What? Was the only response the rope leader had shouted as he took a step back, his confusion shifting to rage. He pointed his hoof at Twilight and the attack resumed. A protection spell of some sort enclosed her, made up of complex purple runes and geometric symbols dancing around with clockwork precision. Rapidly followed by a second one, a pale weak-looking shield with tendrils of magic reached back and slotted into sections of the first spell. The magic bolt struck first, shattering into fragments and being channeled through to the first spell, their energy being stolen to reinforce the inner protection that just glowed all the brighter. The swarm of metal blades arrived next, passing through the outer protective layers if it wasn't even there. Upon reaching the second layer, they veered off, circling Twilight, rapidly gaining speed. Multiple shockwaves each projectile had made a good attempt at being faster than Rainbow Dash. Starlight slowed down the replay so she could see what happened next. Each shard of the metal was reinforced with her own force field as they headed straight back to the one who had thrown them. The shockwaves as they passed through the air was enough to shake the room. The impact slammed the leader into the wall, shattering it and many of the surrounding supports. The damage was just too much for the temple to remain whole, and the ceiling began to cave in. A huge blast of magic catapulted Twilight straight out of the temple, shattering the stone around her and causing yet more damage to the structure. Luna walked up to a pile of rubble and fixed her gaze upon it.
Make the next hour pass in a few minutes,
Luna commanded. Starlight did so, letting her eyes look to the point that Luna was looking at. A hole burst in the rubble. Starlight slowed the replay to normal speed. Some pony was using crude magic to cut or shape their way out. It was the assassin again. His robe was tattered enough that part of his cutie mark could be seen. An open scroll, it looked like. The assassin staggered to his hooves, looking around.
It has been a long time since I've felt pain. Well played, Twilight. Well played.
He spoke, in his deep, sinister voice. The stallion's head snapped up as he looked towards the exit. Lifting his hoof to a stone ring hanging from his neck, he faded from not only vision, but from all of Starlight's senses. Luna stomped a hoof in annoyance, and looked to the entrance to watch a past version of herself, shining armor, and multiple guards, both knight and crystal, enter.
You can end your spell now,
Luna said calmly. Trixie seemed to mutter to herself.
Is that the shop in...
Starlight looked at her, complying with Luna's request. Twilight suddenly rounded on Trixie and spoke in a dangerous tone.
Where do you know that artifact from?
A trembling Trixie seemed to hide from the world under her hat and cape. Luna approached, trailing a wing along Twilight's armored back. Starlight couldn't work out if the gesture was in reproach or affection, but most likely it was a mix of the two.
Trixie, you have nothing to fear,
Luna almost whispered. Trixie stilled and looked up, her fear replaced with mere wariness.
Would you kindly tell us how you know about that keystone?
Luna asked.
A keystone? If you mean the rock that was around Big Bad and Nasty's neck, then it was on sale where Trixie made her worst purchase.
Starlight looked at her in disbelief.
Wait, you can just buy soul-sucking evil artifacts that amplify magic? Once we are done here, we are going to be paying them a visit.
Starlight heard in stereo as Luna and Twilight spoke at once.
Okay, that's not creepy at all.
Starlight sarcastically thought. Twilight turned and started walking further into the temple.
Come on, there's one more place where the time spell is needed.
Starlight coaxed Trixie into coming as she followed, Luna taking up the rear. The path was long and confusing, with many turns and even a few secret passageways, but Twilight didn't hesitate even once. The walls of the temple were highly decorated, with carvings depicting something old. It was hard to appreciate the historical value of the place when being marched down between two of the most powerful beings in Equestria, especially when at least one of them seemed to be in a bad mood. At last, they entered their destination, a room with, at its center, an altar with 4 silver spikes embedded in it. They were spaced just right to be 1 per limb if a pony happened to be laying on it. Even with just horn light, the stains on its surface were more than enough to speak of its dark purpose. Luna followed, stepping down into the room, leaving Trixie looking in from the doorway.
Is that...
Starlight started to ask.
Welcome to the least comfortable accommodations I have ever experienced,
Twilight said with angry sarcasm.
Wait, so you want...
A rather horrified Starlight began.
You don't need to look. We just need your spellcraft.
Luna added, voice reassuring but expression cold.
7 days, 2 hours, and 36 minutes ago is where you need to begin.
Twilight's voice spoke in a haunted whisper. Starlight lit her horn. She could hear Trixie's hoof-falls as she retreated around the corner and a quiet,
I'll be over here.
Clearly she was not wanting to see more horror today. Twilight's scream snapped Starlight's gaze up. She immediately regretted her actions. The scene before her was horrifying. There was no way a pony could live through what she was seeing, let alone still be screaming and trying to struggle free from their bonds. The robed assassin was directing a swarm of surgical blades and extracting parts of Twilight on the altar. Without a second thought, Starlight cast the most powerful anti-nausea spell that she knew. The fact that she would have a dry mouth for the next week was not even considered. At least she would be well hydrated. Dragging her eyes away from the scene and pressing her ears flat to her head to try and drown out the sound, she looked at the two alicorns in the room. Twilight just seems to be cold, and Luna didn't even seem to have any reaction. The powerful fluctuations of magic told a different story. Being near them for more than a few hours like this could cause long-term health problems. Backing out as far as she could and still maintain the time spell, she cast the sound-blocking wall over the doorway, trapping the horrid sounds inside the room. Trixie's whimpering made her glad that she didn't just suppress her own hearing. Reaching out with her aura, she pulled Trixie into a hug. Both of them needed the contact now and would likely need Luna's help tonight. You know what? What would you do in that situation? Because that's probably gotta be some scary shit. Anywho, let's get on to our clairvoyant donators. Top donators: TacoCat598, Peter Coulthard, J Tin Man, Darkside, Gauntlet, and Only One Thing. Zar630, Strix, Raiden, Narwhals, Black Moonheart, Drake Lovedragon, Pastel Skies, Magazine, Dospo, Madman Stan, Delta Omega, Jack Cadge, RuneScythe9852, Hunter Norman, Stephen Bingham, Dash of Evergreen, Rhynie Dragonwolf, Ponyman, Tal Raja, The Toilet Snake, Sword Brother and Mordred, Ronin Wandering, Random Person Man Guy, Easy, Skyochia, Leslie Prickett, Jordan Peterson, Crimson Kitten A9, Lightskin, Monster Kitty, Tim Bob, Need to Life, and many more spectacular people. Thank you all so much for watching this video, and live life to the fullest.